The Galactic Council's chamber fell silent as the final vote was cast. 347 civilizations had spoken, and the verdict was unanimous. Earth would be quarantined. Humanity, that upstart species from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star, would be cut off from the galactic community. No trade, no technology exchange, no diplomatic relations. The galaxy had decided that humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too human to be allowed among the civilized species. Ambassador Annie Chen stood before the assembled delegates, her expression unreadable. She was young for such a position, barely 32 Earth years, but she had been chosen precisely because she understood what her superiors back home already knew. This moment had been inevitable from the start. The council has spoken, droned Councillor Vexither, his crystalline face refracting the chamber's lights into 1,000 fractured rainbows. Earth and all human colonies will be prohibited from galactic space. Your ships will be turned back at every border. Your communications will be blocked. You are hereby expelled from civilized society. Annie tilted her head slightly, a gesture that Massey Rodriguez would recognize immediately. Massey, her counterpart, and the military attaché, who stood 3 steps behind her, had seen that expression before, right before Annie did something that would make their opponents regret underestimating her. I see, Annie said softly. May I speak before we depart? The council members shifted uncomfortably. They had expected rage, perhaps pleading. Instead, the human ambassador's voice carried nothing but mild curiosity. You may, Vexither replied warily. Annie clasped her hands behind her back and began walking slowly along the curved chamber floor. For the past 50 years, humanity has tried to integrate into galactic society. We've followed your protocols, adopted your trade standards, and learned 17 different forms of diplomatic courtesy. We've been patient when older civilizations called us children. We've been understanding when our cultural differences caused offense. She paused, looking up at the thousands of delegates in their tiered seats. But we've also been watching, learning, and if I'm being honest, we've been rather disappointed. Massey suppressed a smile. There it was. Annie was about to burn every bridge they'd built, and she was going to do it with perfect diplomatic grace. Disappointed. Councillor Zhree chirped from her perch, her avian features ruffling with indignation. You barbaric creatures dare to judge us? Barbaric, Annie repeated thoughtfully. Yes, that's been your favorite word for us, hasn't it? Because we still eat meat. Because we have nations instead of a unified planetary government. Because we've had wars. She stopped walking and turned to face the council directly. But let me tell you what we've observed about this civilized galaxy. Massey straightened subtly, his hand moving closer to the data pad that held their exit strategy. Whatever Annie was about to say, it was going to make their departure very interesting. Your Galactic Council, Annie continued, her voice growing stronger, has existed for 12,000 years. In that time, you've developed sophisticated bureaucracies, complex trade networks, and elaborate social hierarchies. And yet, despite all your advanced technology and ancient wisdom, you've solved exactly 0 of the fundamental problems that plague your societies. Preposterous. Vexither's voice cracked like breaking ice. We have brought peace to peace. Annie interrupted, something dangerous flickering behind her diplomatic smile. The Centauri cluster has been in a diplomatic freeze for 3 centuries. That's not peace, that's a cold war with better manners. The verdant worlds are still recovering from an ecological collapse that everyone knew was coming for decades. But your council was too busy debating proper protocol to actually help them. She began walking again, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly silent chamber. And then there's the Outer Rim, 50 systems suffering under pirate raids, slavery, and corporate exploitation. But they're not civilized enough to warrant council protection, are they? They haven't learned to bow correctly or trade in the approved currencies. Massey watched the delegates shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Annie had struck a nerve, multiple nerves, actually. He'd helped her compile the research, spent countless nights reviewing galactic history and current events. They'd known this day was coming, and they'd prepared accordingly. Humanity came to you seeking partnership, Annie said, her voice softer now but no less intense. We came with hope that an older, wiser galactic community could teach us how to transcend our violent past. Instead, we found bureaucracy, stagnation, and civilizations so afraid of change that they've stopped growing entirely. This is outrageous. Jri shrieked. We will not be lectured by a species barely out of its industrial age. Annie smiled then, a genuine, warm smile that somehow made the gesture more threatening than any glare could have been. You're absolutely right. We are young. We are rough around the edges. We still argue among ourselves and make mistakes, and sometimes do things that horrify even us. But we also still know how to innovate, how to adapt, how to grow. She looked directly at Vexithor. You want to quarantine Earth? You want to cut us off from your precious galactic civilization? Fine, we accept. The chamber erupted in confusion. This wasn't the reaction they'd anticipated. Massey stepped forward, standing beside Annie in a show of unified human defiance. We accept. Annie repeated more loudly, because honestly, we don't need you nearly as much as you seem to think we do. In the 50 years we've been part of your community, human innovation has increased galactic computing efficiency by 37%. Our medical research has saved billions of lives across multiple species. Our cultural exports, our music, art, literature have become bestsellers on 100 worlds. She gestured to Massey, who activated his data pad. Holographic displays materialized above the council floor, showing shipping manifests, technology patents, and economic reports. And most importantly, Annie continued, human corporations now hold majority shares in 43% of all interstellar trade routes. Our colonies produce 28% of the galaxy's food supply and 31% of its raw materials. The implications crashed over the council like a tidal wave. Councillor Vexithor leaned forward, his crystalline face suddenly reflecting a new emotion, concern. You wouldn't dare what? Annie asked innocently. Respect your decision? Of course we'll respect it. All human ships will return to human space immediately. All human goods will be redirected to human colonies. All human technology patents will be renegotiated to reflect our new independent status. Massey couldn't help it, he grinned. This was the moment they'd planned for, the card they'd kept hidden. The galaxy had become so dependent on human productivity that cutting Earth off would hurt them far more than it would hurt humanity. This is economic blackmail. Jri accused. No, Massey said, speaking for the first time, his deep voice carrying across the chamber. This is you reaping what you've sown. You invited us in, used our innovations and our labor, and now you want to throw us out when we don't conform perfectly to your standards. We're simply accepting your decision and adjusting our business relationships accordingly. Annie turned toward the exit, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Those 50 Outer Rim systems you've been ignoring, we'll be offering them protection and trade agreements. Human protection. Seems like a good opportunity to put our barbaric military capabilities to productive use. She and Massey walked toward the chamber doors, their footsteps synchronized. Behind them, the council erupted into chaos, delegates shouting, arguing, demanding the vote be reconsidered. As the massive doors closed behind them, Massey finally let out the laugh he'd been holding. You know they're going to reverse that decision within a week, right? Annie smirked, that same dangerous expression she'd worn at the beginning. Oh, I'm counting on it. But when they do, we'll be negotiating from a very different position. Sometimes the best way to win respect is to walk away and let them realize what they're losing. They boarded their shuttle, Earth-made and human-designed, and prepared for the journey home. Behind them, the galaxy was learning a lesson humanity had known for centuries. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the one who fights to stay at the table. It's the one who can smile, stand up, and walk away without looking back. The galaxy had tried to prohibit Earth. Humanity had simply smiled and decided to build something better on their own terms. And in the vast darkness of space, 347 civilizations suddenly realized that maybe, just maybe, they had made a terrible miscalculation about these peculiar, stubborn, impossibly resilient creatures called humans.